right, Doug here for Kojiko and Bay of Quinte, and I'm with a man who maybe requires no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway because I think there's all too many people out there right now who maybe recognize you as this awesome Canadian commander of the International Space Station, but maybe they don't know that you learned to fly in our own backyard in Prince Edward County at Mountain View.
Yep.
You've since gone on to pilot over 70 different types of aircrafts. Speaks fluent Russian. Even this mix of Russian and English you call Ringlish with your Russian counterparts when you're up in space. Commander also of undersea missions, and maybe most importantly understands the true meaning of the phrase, yesterday's coffee is tomorrow's coffee. He's Chris Hadfield, if you don't know him, but regardless, thanks for being with me, man.
It's my pleasure, thanks. And Canada has taught so many people to fly over the last almost 100 years to have learned to fly here. At Mountain View, as an air cadet, as a teenager, I can't think of a better place if you're going to start a career to be able to fly all those different things and maybe someday actually get above the atmosphere. I count myself hugely lucky to have begun my flying career just down the road here at Mountain View.
Well, and speaking of here, we're here at the National Air Force Museum of Canada, largest freestanding collection of aircraft in the nation, tucked into CFB Trenton, largest Air Force base in the nation. You know, you're a guy who's traveled all across the world, outside of the world, to do speaking engagements. But does a place like this resonate a little differently for you?
You know, there's the active duty military folks that are serving here, that are putting their lives at risk, that have recognized that in order to function as a nation like Canada, a certain number of us need to be willing to defend it and need to be willing to spend all of the professional years becoming people who can become Canada's Air Force. So there's that part of the population that I have tremendous respect for and a kinship with. There's a large population of folks who have served past in the military and who have retired in the area. But I'm also from a farm. I grew up on a farm. And this area, all of Prince Edward County and all of the land around here, of course, is so richly agricultural. And then all of the development that has happened in the last little while here on the shore of Lake Ontario. It is such a rich, interesting part of Ontario and part of Canada with a lot of progressive thought, but also a great sense of national service. And as embodied by the museum and what that teaches, both from the history and the opportunities of the future to young Canadians. To me, it's a delight to have a chance to come and speak to this group of people here, but also to help support this facility. I'm pleased to be in a position to do both.
Yeah. I want to just kind of go back to my intro a little bit. I'm thinking of an interview that I saw with you with Peter Mansbridge briefly after you came back from ISS. You're talking about this notion of being known for one thing by a lot of people. But then you even went so far as to point out, you know, you're talking about career highlight in the mid-'80s, you're a F-18 pilot and you're intercepting Soviets off the east coast of Canada. You know, and so does it ever become frustrating when you know that you've had such a validating life and a validating career when people repeatedly bring one thing up that's just a little chapter?
No, I mean, there are whole swaths of things that happen in Canada that I know nothing about. I mean, you can't know everything about everything. There's not time. And in fact, we implicitly count on almost everybody to do their job without us knowing about it. I don't know what it's like to be, whatever, a fireman. I haven't been a fireman, or a policeman, or a serving politician, or the Minister of Fisheries, or, you know, all kind. I don't, you know.
You're retired now. You got a lot of aspirations
but
still.
I don't know what most of those jobs. We need all those jobs done. We need them to function as a society. I count on those people to be professional, to work hard, to try and get the job done properly. So it's pretty easy to reflect that back on myself and say, yeah, I've been really working hard at the things I think are important. I tried to do them as well as I possibly could. The fact that somebody else doesn't have a perfectly clear understanding of the stuff that I've done, that's normal. That's okay. I'm not too worried about that. My satisfaction is internal, not external.
Would you ever have thought, you know, before you took this ISS mission, that you'd become this PR personality, not just for this nation, but also for the International Space Program? Like, would you ever been able to think what it would result in?
Nobody says I'm going to spend the next 30 years of my life studying, working, and risking my life because someday I hope maybe I'll become famous. That's that's not your thought process. I was always trying to do the things that I thought were important to me as well as I could possibly do them, and to try and not let it kill me, to try and somehow overcome the risks and accomplish what I thought was worthwhile. To have that along the way become respected by other people, to have it become well known to people that I don't know, that to me that's just delightful. Okay. It's just sort of, it's like a recognition that the things that I value are also valued by other people. It's actually just an increase of responsibility. I don't just represent what I think is important, but other people find that valuable also, and so I need to conduct myself accordingly. So I'm delighted by it. I think it's great. I think it's nice that a lot of people agree that the stuff I've worked really hard on is also valid and important for things that they believe in.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, it's to me it's just, and now it's just a lot of people kind of know me when I meet them for the first time. That's okay. It's just, you just sort of like everybody's a friend you haven't seen in a while.
Sure.
It's okay.
I read that you've flown over 100 million miles in space.
Yeah, something like that.
So
yeah.
that's like, incidentally, 13,333 trips across Canada. But I also mentioned in the intro that you've been a commander underwater.
I have.
You know, NASA with Nemo 14. So what is an underwater space mission?
If you're training to live in the most remote of all human locations, which is on board the International Space Station, you can train in the comfort of a classroom, but at some point you have to make your training realistic enough to be psychologically significant,
right?
Where the level of risk is actually high, where the consequence of decision making is actually real. And so we fly jets like I did as a military pilot, but then as a NASA pilot. We do survival training like I did with the Canadian military up in Cold Lake with the Air Force and at Valcartier with the Army. And then we also train at a habitat on the seafloor with a group of 6 people because it's a pretty clear parallel analog to living on board a spaceship. And therefore, the psychological pressures are similar. The consequences are the same. The level of technical competence is the same. So when you get to space, you're not overwhelmed by the difference. But some part of it, even though it is different, it still feels familiar. And you've developed skills that you can then rest on in order to try and do a good job when you actually get to the job that matters. So the life of an astronaut is one of preparation and training. And we try and make it as realistic and productive as we possibly can. And that includes spending many months of my life underwater.
With high stakes, similar high stakes.
Yeah, with life or death stakes.
Okay, the voice of mission command or control for over 20 missions. How's that voice take us out of this interview?
Well, when a mission is complete and you've somehow successfully done everything you're supposed to do.
Did we do that?
The measure is when your vehicle safely comes back to the ground, you get a call of touchdown, and you get a call of wheel stop, Houston. Let's go with that, all right? You ready? 3, 2, 1.
Wheel stop, Houston. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah.